The studio lights were bright, the cameras rolling and the atmosphere tense. Stephen Miller leaned forward, repeating his carefully rehearsed talking points, convinced that no one in the room would dare challenge him directly. But Jasmine Crockett had other plans. She cut in, her voice sharp, her words slicing through the air like a blade. "Stephen, enough with the recycled talking points. You don't want to talk about immigration or security. What you want is power. And the truth is, your agenda isn't about protecting this country. It's about controlling it." The words landed like a shockwave. The audience gasped, anchors froze, and Miller's confident smirk faltered. For years, he had built his reputation on framing debates, bending conversations, and overwhelming opponents with technical jargon. Yet in a single instant, Crockett flipped the script, setting the stage for a confrontation unlike anything viewers had seen before. Miller tried to laugh it off, a nervous chuckle slipping out, but it only made the silence in the room heavier. Crockett didn't give him space to recover. She leaned in again, her tone unwavering. "You can't keep hiding behind buzzwords, Stephen. People deserve to know the truth about what you've been pushing from the shadows." The live broadcast, meant to be another platform for Miller's familiar narrative, suddenly transformed into a battlefield. And for the first time, it was clear he was not in control. Stephen Miller, once the quiet architect of hardline strategies in the Trump White House, had stepped into the studio ready to defend his legacy. His focus was the same as always: immigration, fear of change, and a warning about chaos at the borders. For years, he thrived on the idea that if he spoke with certainty, others would hesitate to challenge him. The panel was filled with commentators who often let him dominate the discussion, but Jasmine Crockett was different. She was not there to play along. Known for her sharp tongue and fearless confrontations, she represented a new kind of voice that refused to be drowned out by Miller's rehearsed monologues. From the moment she took her seat, the tension was visible. She listened, eyes steady, as Miller laid out his lines about protecting the nation's values. Then she struck. "You talk about protection, Stephen," she said, "but the truth is your policies were never about safety. They were about division, and you know it." The room shifted. Other panelists leaned in. The host, usually quick to keep balance, stayed silent, sensing that something bigger was unfolding. Miller adjusted his tie, clearly unsettled by her directness, but tried to regain his footing. "You may not like my ideas, Congresswoman," Miller responded, "but they're rooted in facts. We need order, we need discipline, and we need leaders willing to make tough choices. That's what I stand for." Crockett didn't blink. "No, Stephen. What you stand for is manipulation. You hide behind facts, but the record shows your playbook is built on fear, secrecy, and strategies that were never meant for the public eye." At that moment, it was no longer a debate between two politicians. It became a duel between hidden power and raw truth, with the nation watching closely to see which one would prevail. Stephen Miller leaned forward, his voice tight, trying to control the damage. "That's a baseless attack, and you know it. You're twisting reality for the cameras." Jasmine Crockett didn't flinch. She pulled out printed documents that had been waiting in her folder. "Baseless? Then explain these memos, Stephen. Your own words, internal strategy notes where you describe how fear of demographic change could be weaponized to rally support. You wrote about amplifying panic, about using division as fuel." Miller froze, his hand tightening on the desk. "Those are misinterpreted drafts." "No," Crockett cut him off, her tone sharp and unrelenting. "This is your blueprint. Every policy you pushed, every speech you whispered into Trump's ear, it all follows this script. You talk about protecting America, but what you've been protecting is your grip on power by exploiting fear." The audience erupted, some gasping, others clapping. The host's eyes darted toward Miller, waiting for his rebuttal. He raised his voice, desperate to drown her out. "That's not fair. You're cherry-picking notes, and you don't understand the complexity of—" "Complexity?" Crockett shot back. "This isn't complex. You wanted to create chaos so you could present yourself as the savior. And you did it at the expense of families, children, and communities who had to live with the consequences of your experiments." The tension was unbearable. Other panelists whispered among themselves, but no one dared to interrupt. It was Miller against Crockett, truth against spin, live and unfiltered. Miller's face tightened. "This is a smear campaign. You're grandstanding." Crockett's reply was ice cold. "If exposing the truth is grandstanding, then yes, I'll stand as tall as I need to, because the American people deserve to see what's been done in their name." The silence after her words was heavy. For the first time in years, Stephen Miller looked cornered, stripped of the armor he had built around himself. And Crockett wasn't done. Stephen Miller tried to lean back in his chair, forcing a smirk that didn't quite land. "Congresswoman, you're exaggerating. These are talking points taken out of context. The American people know I've always stood for stability." Jasmine Crockett shook her head slowly, her voice steady but sharp. "Stability? Stephen, you don't want stability. You want obedience, and you've built your career on making Americans believe that fear is patriotism. But here's the truth. Your hidden agenda was never about protecting this nation. It was about rewriting it in your image." The room went still. Miller opened his mouth, but no words came out. His usual arsenal of statistics and half-arguments failed him. Crockett leaned forward, her voice cutting like a blade. "You talk about defending America, but what you were defending was a system where you pull the strings from behind the curtain, and tonight, on live television, that curtain is coming down." Gasps echoed through the audience. Even the host looked stunned, gripping the desk as if unsure whether to intervene. Miller's face flushed, his hands fumbling with his notes. The smirk was gone. His silence was louder than any denial he could muster. Crockett pressed on, delivering the line that would echo across headlines. "Stephen, history won't remember you as a patriot. It will remember you as the man who tried to hide fear behind the mask of leadership and failed." The words hung in the air, heavy and final. Miller blinked rapidly, his lips trembling, but nothing came out. The humiliation was complete. The audience erupted, some applauding, some shouting, but everyone knowing they had just witnessed a turning point. For the first time, Stephen Miller had no escape. He was exposed, stripped bare in front of millions by a single, devastating confrontation. The studio buzzed with the aftershocks of Crockett's words. Panelists who had been silent suddenly looked alive, exchanging whispers about what they had just witnessed. The camera zoomed in on Stephen Miller, but the once confident strategist had no comeback. His hands shuffled uselessly through papers, his eyes darting as if searching for an exit that wasn't there. Jasmine Crockett didn't gloat. She didn't need to. Instead, she looked directly into the camera, her tone calm but firm. "The American people have been fed fear for far too long. Tonight, we pull back the curtain. It's time to stop mistaking manipulation for leadership. It's time to demand truth, even when it's uncomfortable. Especially when it's uncomfortable." Her words carried weight beyond the studio. Social media lit up within seconds, clips of her takedown spreading at lightning speed. Headlines poured in. Crockett exposes Miller on live TV. Miller humiliated in unscripted showdown. Talk shows dissected every phrase. Commentators called it a defining moment, not just a clash of personalities, but a revelation about how much power had been wielded behind closed doors. Miller's allies rushed to defend him, but their talking points felt hollow against the raw force of Crockett's exposure. Supporters of Crockett hailed her as fearless, a truth-teller willing to confront what others had tiptoed around. Even critics admitted she had landed a blow that Miller would struggle to recover from. In the days that followed, the confrontation became more than a viral clip. It sparked conversations about transparency, about who really shapes policy, and about the cost of letting fear guide a nation's future. Miller's silence during the broadcast was replayed again and again, a symbol of how quickly power can unravel when confronted by truth. Crockett closed that night with one final statement that resonated across the country. "This is bigger than me, bigger than Stephen, bigger than politics. It's about who we are willing to become as a nation. Will we be ruled by fear, or will we rise with courage?" The broadcast ended, but its echo lingered. Stephen Miller walked out diminished, his reputation scarred. Jasmine Crockett walked out amplified, her words already woven into the national conversation, and for millions watching, the moment crystallized a lesson they wouldn't soon forget. Truth may stumble, it may be buried, but when it surfaces, it has the power to shatter even the strongest masks.